Good evening, everybody at Empire of the Cyclops Con. Welcome to what's coming down the 5e Pike. I am your host for tonight, Chris, the director of 5e development and design for Goodman Games. And we have a bunch of awesome special guests for you tonight. And we're going to talk about everything that's going on in the world of 5e with Goodman Games. So welcome. Throw your questions in the chat. If you have any questions, we'll try and keep up on them. And in the meantime, I would like to introduce Mr. Joe Goodman. Welcome.
Hello, how's it going, Chris? Thanks for letting me crash your show.
Thank you. Awesome. And I just need to reload my Twitch because everything crashed on my end, because that's always what happens. So, and I'm not seeing anything in the chat. So hopefully you guys are seeing stuff. Oh, well, I'll just run blind. Let's just go for it. So anyway, welcome. So Joe, I wanted you on the show to basically just give everybody a really high-level view of all the exciting things that we have going on in the wonderful world of 5e. And then later on, folks, I'm going to get into more details about several of the products that I'm working on and what various stages they're in. And then I'm going to bring a couple of special guests on, and we're going to dive in, and we're actually going to show off some of the product pages and everything. So have at it, Joe.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me. Everyone, I hope you're having a great con so far. I was wandering around the, I think we're calling it the InCon live experience, which some of you know is GatherTown, which is really cool. And for those of you watching, everybody's welcome to join. And if you don't already know about this, go to goodmangames.com and click the little icon. If you're on your phone, it's right at the top. If you're on desktops, in the upper right-hand corner. And it's a really cool way to walk around and meet other gamers and chit chat. And it feels just like you're at a real con. We call it the InCon experience. Anyway, it's great talking to people. And now it's great to be on Chris's show talking about 5e. So I figured I'd first start by recapping some of the stuff that's happened in our 5e product line lately, and then answering the question we get every time. Hopefully you've all finished Temple of Elemental Evil by now. It's only, what, 600 pages?
732, but who's counting?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it's been out for like a month and a half. You should have read it by now, but it's great. It's a really awesome addition to the Ore line and to our 5th edition fantasy line. And it's really cool. So one of the questions we often get is, what's next in the Ore line? And the answer is, we're not ready to tell you yet. So everybody keeps asking Chris or me or everybody else in the team. There's something in the works, and it'll probably release mid next year. Chris has actually been working on it for a while now, but there's a couple other pieces that have to fall into place before we're ready to really go into a lot of detail. But it is going to be awesome, and I think very appealing to everybody who enjoyed the first 6 releases in the line. But we're not ready to tell you yet, so you can keep asking, but that'll be the same answer for a while. So just to get that out of the way. But the Ore line, if you haven't already picked up all 6, they're great. We also have the 5th edition fantasy line, and there's a couple more of those in the queue and more coming down the pike, which is the whole point of the show. And then Denizens is the other big project that's still on the horizon. 500 monsters plus the other 50 or so that you did, if I remember right, Chris?
A lot. Yeah, 500 plus, let's call it.
500 plus. It's a lot of critters, and the art's coming in, and Matt's going to be on the show later to show you some of the art and the layout, and they're looking great. And then, of course, we have some updates for you on Crypt of the Devilich and some other stuff. But there's a lot to talk about, which is the exciting part. And Chris is here to tell you all about it.
Yes, we're going to get into it. If you guys tuned into our show that we did at the last convention, which was Dungeon Crawl Online back in May, we did a show like this, and we had a little product graph and everything, and we showed off exactly where the progress was everything. So we're going to jump into that. So I'm just checking to see if there's any questions specifically for Joe, and nope, nobody wants to talk to you. So so yay. So anyway, well, thank you for jumping on and saying a couple of words. I appreciate it. We are going to say goodbye to Joe Goodman, because we have another Joe coming up later on. And I'm going to be back by myself, and then we're going to talk a little bit nitty gritty about where we are with all the projects. So. welcome back, everybody. So thank you for that little transition there. So we're all set up to talk. So I'm going to get into our product line discussion right now before I bring on our special guest. So if Elena, if you can pull up our graph, I would like to show that off to everybody. So if you guys tuned into our last show, you're kind of familiar with this graph. We have all of our products on the left-hand side, and then we've got these little bars kind of showing where the progress is. And there's really kind of three different color codes you need to be worried about there. Green means that the task is done, if you will. Yellow means that the task is currently in process. And then if you just see it blacked out, it means that we're done with it. Or if you see green bars all the way across, it means that we are done with it. So as you can see, our projects, we go through a lot of different stages. We go from concept to writing, to play testing, then into editing. Our orders and layout usually kind of happens at the same time. Then a product gets shipped off to the printer, and then it gets shipped, and then it comes back from the printer, and then it goes into the distribution network. Now, as most of you folks know, the world's kind of a hot mess right now in regard to global shipping and printing and shortages on everything. So those are things obviously all out of our control. So those obviously impact our release schedule on things. And that's why we try to not nail down exactly when our release dates are on things, because it's just, there's too many variables. I mean, there's too many ships that are parked off the coast of the LA terminal right now that you just can't figure out what's going on. So if we take a look here, I've got all the products, and if you also are familiar with me, you know that I like to use product codes for some of the things that we haven't actually formally announced yet. So the ones on the top you'll see, I actually have specific names for, and then once we get down to the bottom, we start getting into the project code name. So yes, ore number 6, Temple of Elemental Evil, it's done. They started shipping out in early September. Hopefully you've got yours by now. If you, for some reason, do not have your copy of ore number 6, please email us at info@goodmangames.com. If you pre-ordered it, or if you've been waiting for more than a week or two, and we can check and see what the status of that guy is. So that was a big thing, obviously, off my plate. That dominated a lot of our time earlier this year. So yay for that. The next one is FEF, 5th edition Fantasy Horror Blackwood. That is one of our small little 32-page modules. That one is done, and it's actually in some stage at the printer right now. So we are kind of that one's still kind of in a holding pattern, so nothing's really changed since the last time we talked, but that one is coming. Let's call that one coming soon. To hopefully I'll be able to update that one on an episode of Talking TSR very soon. A lot of folks are probably interested in where we're at with Crypt of the Devilich. If you guys remember, Crypt of the Devilich was due to ship in November, and I'm looking at my calendar right now, and I can't believe it. It's November already. We are really, really close with Crypt of the Devilich. We will be sending out the PDF to all the backers very soon. Again, I'm not going to give you an exact date. We're literally waiting for the final couple of pieces of artwork. But it is through layout. In a little bit, when I have one of our guests on, we're going to actually show some pages off of that. So that one is very, very close. Once we get, the PDF out and everything, then it's got to go to the printer. And as I discussed, who knows what that's going to mean. So unfortunately, that one is going to be delayed from our Kickstarter. That should not be a huge shock to folks. I think we even were kind of preparing folks for this, because if you guys recall, for the Kickstarter, we far exceeded what our anticipated goals were for that. So we knew we were going to run into trouble with this, but we threw in a bunch of awesome stretch goals, including an entirely new level to the dungeon. So we're giving you basically 25% more Devilich. But that all takes time. It takes time to write that, to edit it, to lay it out. It's looking awesome. It's looking really good. Our second special guest is going to come on and talk specifically about one of the encounters that he designed. So I'm very excited to share that with you guys tonight. Dungeon Denizens, yes, 500 plus monsters. I'm going to show off a couple of our initial layouts for a couple of the monsters with that. We are in, again, 500 monsters, folks. Whenever you do 500 of anything, it takes a long time. So we have 500 pieces of color art being commissioned for this, and we only have like 10 or so artists. So yeah, that's going to take a lot of time, and then it has to be all laid out. All the monsters are done. They're all fully designed. They're all almost through editing, almost like, I mean, literally we're like a week or two away from having them through editing. And then the fun then begins with trying to cram them all in on one page. And when I say fun, I'm being really, really cynical with that. So the next thing on our list we have is Project Free. That's the free RPG Day module that came out a couple of weeks ago. That was Sunken Temple of Set over my shoulder there. You can see the cover of that. That's our tie-in module with Dark Tower, which I'm going to talk about next. That's something that we weren't originally, when I was on this show back in May. I don't think we were planning on doing this. And then we decided, I think it was actually right after the convention, Joe reached out to me and said, we want a free RPG Day product. Talk to me. So literally, I had to set a bunch of stuff aside, and we put that together, and we got that out the door and got it to the printer in time. So that's already out and in folks' hands. If you did not get that at Free RPG Day, it will be available for sale at some point. I believe the extra copies, we don't have a lot of extra copies, but they will eventually be for sale on our website. So keep an eye on our blog for that. Dark Tower has dominated most of my design time the last couple of months as I juggle all these different projects. So I am done with the writing on that. And we are in the midst of play testing right now, and we're getting ready for doing the 5e, not the 5e, I did the 5e, the DCC conversion is in the process right now of being done on that. So that is moving along nicely. And that should be hopefully a release for next year. And then after that, we get into a bunch of projects. The next two projects, FEF 19 and FEF 20, those are about at the same stage where we were at in May. Nothing's really changed too much on that. We've just been juggling around too many of these other large projects to really focus on those. Those are done. They're written completely, and one of them is play tested. So those are just kind of waiting in the wings, and we have some of the art done. I believe we have the covers for those done. And then the next two, Project Rule of Three and Project Crucible, those are another two not last minute, but we decided to throw those into development earlier this year. Those are fully written and partially play tested, and those are going to be coming soon. So that's going to be two more. Those are smaller products. And then the last one that I want to talk about, which might generate a little bit of interest, is Project Stomp. We haven't really announced what Project Stomp is, but I'm going to give you a couple little tidbits about it. First of all, like I said, I like to have fun with these code names. Project Stomp is going to be a module all about giants. Everybody loves giants. They're a classic trope in D&D. So we're gonna take a stab at giants and see what we do. And this is I'm gonna preface this by saying this is a very large project that we're working on. We have 7 authors working on it, and they are just about done with their first drafts. I'm waiting on like 2 first drafts before we start moving into the next stage on that. So I'm very excited about that project. It's coming along very well. About a month ago, we had a team meeting, and I got us to see everything before all the writers submitted everything, and it's looking good. It's really exceeding my expectations. So I'm very, very excited about that project, which is certainly coming down the pike. Really, really excited. Yes, yes, it is Pun City today. You missed some of my puns earlier on the opening ceremonies. Looking at the comments, it looks like, okay, good. People are not really that upset that we didn't announce the OR module, so it looks like they're going to let us continue the show. I'm going to move along, and I'm going to bring on our next guest, and this is Matt. Matt is we're going to transition away, I think, for a second, and we're going to come back, but we're going to be bringing Matt on screen next, and Matt is our layout and graphic artist and extraordinaire. And also Cat herds all of our artists. So I want to hear all about that process, to be honest with you. So we'll be back in a moment. All right, thanks. Welcome back, everybody. And my special guest is Matt Hildebrand. And what is your official title, Matt? Is it like your herder of artists, or what is it exactly?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have one. I either I have 4 titles or none. I'm unofficial in almost every way. But thank you for inviting me, Chris. It's a pleasure to be on for sure.
Well, thanks. And for those of you guys who do not know, just like you guys never hear from, well, I shouldn't say never, but you very rarely hear from Elena, our producer extraordinaire behind the glass, who does all these amazing things. Matt creates all these awesome graphics and templates for our conventions and for all of our Twitch shows. So whenever you're seeing Captain Pike swearing and whatnot, that's from his twisted mind. He actually fully developed that character. It's like I had some ideas for Captain Pike and he just ran with it, which is awesome. This is what happens when you work at a game company. But no, I'm glad to have you on. So Matt, you guys, everything, almost everything that you guys see from Goodman Games is gone through Matt at some point. And that's what we want to talk to you about. So Matt, in whatever 30 seconds or a minute, so what do you do when in your typical day as a graphic artist, designer / herder of folks? What does your day look like?
Right. Well, the good thing about it is there's no such thing as a typical day, I think, with working for Goodman Games, and that's a good thing, right? Like you mentioned, Chris, I do graphic design and layout for a lot of the print products. There are certain things that other designers work on as well, but I think I do most of the print stuff and the digital stuff that comes out. In addition, I have a different hat for whenever I have to work, like you said, corral artists. I'm an art director for Goodman, so I'm kind of the intermediary between everybody else on the team and artists. To some degree, what that means is I'm in charge of a bunch of spreadsheets, right? Like every time a product is released, prior to that, there's a big list of all the cool monsters we need or all the cool NPC art that needs to be done, and I get to kind of work logistics as far as that goes. The flip side of that, though, is sometimes when I routinely, every day, I open my email and I see incredible artwork from all these artists coming in. So it's kind of like Christmas morning. And I guess that's the reward for working with spreadsheets in the first place. But in addition to that, I do some graphic design on day-to-day things, like you mentioned, some of the Twitch shows, doing logos for some of the different shows. That kind of stuff is routine. And truthfully, I do a little bit of motion graphics and video editing as well. So I have worked on some of the Kickstarter videos in the past. And truthfully, that's actually how I got connected to Goodman Games in the first place. Way back when the Purple Planet Kickstarter came out for DCC, I had a communication with Harley Stroh, and the rest is history, I guess.
Oh, nice. Excellent.
Yeah.
That's great. How many of us, a lot of us probably had conversations with one person or another that kind of got us our start back, when we kind of hooked up with this amazing company to work for.
Yep,
all right, what is the most challenging product that you've worked on for Goodman Games, would you say?
I think the most challenging was probably Ore number 6, Temple of Elemental Evil. That's probably not a surprise.
Yeah,
it's a big one. Yeah.
Besides 732 reasons why.
Right. Yeah, I think that one took a lot of organization between ordering all the artwork and all the maps and all the handouts. That one was a challenge production-wise too. There's, I think, at least one, maybe 2 gatefolds in that one.
Yeah.
And I had leveled up by then from the gatefold in Castle Amber that we did before. So between the slipcase and how the whole thing gets packaged, and there was a lot of creative stuff, but also a lot of production stuff, which is important to know both, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that was probably the most challenging, but also probably the most rewarding. I think whenever when I finally got it in the mail and held it in my hands, I think that's part of the magic of working in the creative field, is like, this thing was just something in your mind, right? I mean, you and at least one other writer who worked on it, and the artist produced their stuff individually, sent that in, and eventually all of that becomes a real thing that you can hold and flip through and fold out, and that's kind of amazing, I think.
Yeah, I agree. That is probably the most rewarding thing, and a lot of people don't realize these things. that we're working so far in advance on this. I mean, it was 2+ years from when the journey of Temple of Elemental Evil started to when it actually got in people's hands. And right now, I'll tell people that I'm working on things right now that are probably coming out in 2024. And a lot of deep dark secrets I'm not allowed to talk about. But there is all this, behind the scenes stuff that goes in, and most people think that, oh wow, it's just like, you shake your hand and there it is, there's the product. Oh, there's so many, especially when there's so many people involved, and the more, and as you know, the more people you get involved, the harder things get, because you have a lot of moving parts going on in people. So
Yep.
so can you share, if you can you share an interesting story maybe that you've had with an artist or something without naming names? Don't go throwing Doug under the bus or anything like that. So
Oh, I wouldn't dream of it. If I'm ever in a bar fight, I want Doug Kovacs on my side, not the other side.
I would agree with that 100%.
And
he's not a large guy, but he, pound for pound.
Amen. Yeah, I don't know if I have any stories that are that great. I do think that there's a little bit of magic when, like you said, Chris, you'll have something in mind maybe when you write something, and I try to give the artists ideas if they ask for it. I guess that's part of the key, is every artist works differently, and some appreciate input from their art director and some just want me to stay the hell out of the way, and I try to respect that in each case. But it is magical when I get something back that is not something I even considered. Like they took it probably and did 14 sketches before I saw number 15, right? And they've kind of worked out. I can pick a couple pieces from some of the ore books we've done that went a whole different direction than I thought they would. But like you said, that's why you work with creative people who are specialists, right? Who are experts at their field and at their craft. And that's why you don't work with computers, right? You work with people who actually do artwork on paper, etc. So
exactly. Excellent. All right, real quick, I got to get this one in here. Star Wars or Star Trek?
That's an easy one.
Okay.
To answer the question, let me take you back to a drive-in in the summer of 1977.
Oh yeah, I know where this is going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that Star Wars came out and changed my world. Nothing against Star Trek, but I do think that started my love of like science fantasy, like that kind of in between genre. I mean, it influenced me to love science fantasy since then. I mean, I loved Gamma World growing up, and like that kind of in between space is still a sweet spot for me. So it's got to be Star Wars.
Nice. And are you still an active gamer?
Totally am. Yep.
Nice.
Play a big variety of games, some OSR stuff, some new stuff. I have at least one group. That's the key, is we mix it up all the time. Every couple months it's a whole different game with a whole different DM, and that's a bonus, I think, for sure.
Awesome. Excellent. All right. Well, I'm sure people want to see some stuff here. So, so
they
Elena,
didn't tune in to see my face, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. I'm always like, let's show some pages. So can we get up the Doug Kovacs cover of Crypt of the Devilich and remind everybody what we're going to be looking at on the cover of that spectacular one? It's up. Awesome. So everybody got that. Oh yeah, so that's coming soon, and then the next thing, we'll let you guys look at that for a moment. So now I want to show you guys a couple sample of the layout pages of Crypt of the Devilich. So we're going to show you guys just a couple samples so you guys can see that we're actually really close to getting this PDF out into your hands. So that's going to be coming, so if you can pop that guy up. Awesome. Give everybody a moment. There we go. That looks like that is one of the that's one of the monsters, I believe. My eyes are shot. So yeah, that looks like Brother Mikolas.
Might be one of the NPCs. Yep, brother. I think you're absolutely right, Chris.
Yep.
And
Brother Mikolas.
Routine Goodman Games fans will notice that this piece of artwork is in color, which is something special for this adventure. All the pieces, there's going to be a variety of color pieces inside the adventure itself that double as tokens for VTT gaming. So all of the color pieces that you're going to see here are also going to be as a token pack that people can run games online, which is a great bonus.
Yes, which is amazing. Elena, do we have another sample layout we can show off there? Awesome. Let's see what we got coming up next. This is like is a mystery to us too, as we see.
Yeah, right.
There we go. I believe that's from the beginning of the module. That's like the introductory chapter there. So you can see. So like I said, folks, we are really, really close with Crypt of the Devilich. It is coming. We've got a couple of other samples we can show you. We can show you if we've got a sample of the maps. Oh, cool! Look at that. That's more the NPCs. That's some of the character options. Actually, the NPC options.
Yeah, a couple of great pieces by Brad McDevitt on that one.
Yes.
That,
yeah, he did some really, really nice pieces. I own one now, by the way.
Nice. I don't blame you. If you want an anti-paladin, Brad is the guy to talk to, because he can do a great job on something like that.
He definitely is. All right, I think we've got another one coming in here. This is this is so exciting. So, all right. Okay, so yeah, that is, I believe, one of the encounters. So awesome. So yeah, all right, yeah, people are starting to ham it up in the chat here now. All right, I like it. Cool.
Yeah, it
so
looks like Brad's online. He's commenting.
He's
awesome.
admiring his handiwork here.
Right.
So if we can pull up maybe some of the maps, maybe pull up one map, Elena, and then follow it up with maybe the handouts, because I want to talk a little bit about the handouts. Oh, that's the mummy dragon, but that is the mummy dragon was probably one of my favorite pieces in the original module. And for those folks who are not aware, Crypt of the Devilich was originally published back in 2005. And we have redone it, and we have redone all of the artwork and all of the handout artwork. Matt, is there a couple of original ones still kicking in there?
There's a handful that we're still going to use from the 3.5 edition. Yep.
Okay. So yep. Okay, cool. Yep. So this is one of the next thing that's coming up is one of the maps from the actual lost level. So this is one of the encounter areas from the additional level of the dungeon that we designed, one of the stretch goals. So this is one of the reasons why we're making you guys wait longer. So like I said, you're getting an entire, you're getting easily 25% more module because of the lost level. Actually, maybe even more. That level ended up being really long.
Yep.
And I think we're gonna pop up. Can we pop up a handout now? Because I wanna get to some other good stuff too.
Yeah, the maps in this one are all done by Will McAuslin, and they are amazing. His work on Temple of Elemental Evil was amazing, and these maps look great. And this is a handout, as you said.
And for those of you guys in Gathertown, he did the artwork for the Inn of the Slumbering Drake, the interior of the Inn of the Slumbering Drake. So we keep him very, very busy. All right, yep, this is one of the handouts. This is a very recognizable encounter from the previous edition, and this is the new handout artwork for that. Do we have another handout, or is that it, Elena? Okay, cool. We got another handout coming up, and then we're going to move over, because I think everybody wants to see some Dungeon Denizens. I think we're going to show off a couple of those as well. Yeah, there we go. That one came out. I think that was one of the ones you were referencing, Matt, how it just knocked it out of the park. Yeah, that one came out really, really nice. Really, really nice. And there's a good example of, we needed to do a couple of tweaks on that. There was something that I added to the module at the last minute that did not make it to the illustration suggestion that we sent off to the artist. So I actually caught it, and we actually had to have the artist go back and change one of the bits of that piece, and we've got it fixed, and it looks amazing. So we caught that one nicely there. So all right, so let's talk a little bit of monsters here with Dungeon Denizens.
Sounds great.
So 500 monsters, Matt, and while we're talking, Elena, if you want to pull up the Anwin sample, that would be great. 500 monsters, what is your plan for 500 monsters?
Well, short of cloning myself, I think that 500 monsters plus 5e stat blocks equals, if I had hair, probably I would start to pull it out. But like I said, the fact is we're getting color artwork for all of these monsters, right? and that's amazing in itself. There's 7 artists working on it now, probably a few more to join shortly, and the stuff they're turning in is amazing. um I've Goodman has never, at least I've never worked on a book for Goodman that had color the whole way through, every single page, every single monster. And not only that, here's the end one, I guess, up on screen now.
Yep.
All of these artists are still working in traditional media, so all of these pieces of artwork exist, and it's on them to take it through the process we need to be able to work in a digital format like this. But that's, I guess, a secondary thing to consider is any piece of artwork that you're going to see tonight or in the book can be bought. It's on a piece of paper somewhere, right? Like you could go to these artists and track them down. And like you said, Chris, we've made a dent in this one so far. We have quite a few pieces turned in, and I don't think all of them are pretty amazing.
Yeah, and we're, like I said, we have never attempted a book like this before. Just to throw some numbers at you guys, 500 monsters. Like I said, anytime you do 500 of anything takes a long time. We have 18 authors that have worked on this book, 3 editors. Like I said, we've got 7 artists working away right now. We're probably going to be getting a couple more artists on this. Lots of moving parts with this, and then each monster essentially needs to be laid out on its own page or own spread of pages. So we're going to take our time on this one. We're going to try, we've already, we announced this product it was a year ago, I think. And folks are probably like, where is it? And it's like, it's coming. And, this was one of the big tasks when I joined Goodman Games full time that I took on. And I would say a couple months in, I told Joe that we probably couldn't do a product like this size and scope with this many folks working on it if you didn't have somebody that was kind of pushing it through and ushering it through the whole way. So we are so excited about it. If you want to call up, we have another sample, the child of I can never pronounce this. Let's just call him the child. It's not Yoda. It's not Baby Yoda though, but we're gonna call it the child.
Bobugbabills. It's the child of Bobugbabills.
Thank you, Matt.
Yes, sir.
See, I don't even. He even says it better than me. So, so we're pretty, and you can see that. And I love how the child is kind of sitting on top of the sidebar there. I love that. So so we did have a question in the chat. No, none of this is final. We're just showing you guys where we're going with this. So the colors are probably not final. The art's final. I would even say the stats might not be completely 100% final. We're still doing some tweaking on that. We have editors working on those as well. We're adding some cool factors to things. We're also looking, when things get into layout, if we have any white space gaps in it, we might actually go back and try and fill some of those things in. So hopefully next year you'll be getting a lot more information on this project. This has been a wonderful project to work on, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more with our next guest. Matt, with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. I hope you had a good time coming in and talking to folks and everything. Not that, it'd be cooler when we're back in person conventions next year and you could literally have a conversation with people, but
that sounds great
for now. So
thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you so very much, everybody. We're going to say goodbye to Matt. And our next special guest is Joe Rasso. And he is one of our 5e writers. And we're going to talk about some projects that he worked on. All right, welcome back, everybody. So our last guest for the Coming Down the Pike show is Joe Rasso, and he is one of our 5e writers. And he actually is a survivor of our 2021 5e open call for writers. He made it through the funnel, and I'm going to talk to him a little bit up. But anyway, Joe, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. It's pretty exciting to be here.
Awesome. Excellent. We're going to hear all about it. So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself and more specifically, ground that in what's your gaming background, how long you've been gaming, what system did you, cut your teeth on?
I think the first memory of sort of the gaming sphere for me was being at my cousin's house. He was 5 or 6 years older than I was, and this was the late 70s, and they had the the player's handbook with the iconic statue and the rogues crawling over, prying the gems off. And I go, oh wow, that's awesome! Can I play? Can I play? And he said, well, you know what? I'll loan you this book. Read it for the next 2 months, and then if you figure out what's going on, you can play with us. Needless to say, that didn't actually happen. I think my first actual game was maybe in grade 8, perhaps. What's the basic set with the Arrow Lotus image of the dragon and the fighter.
Oh yes, the blue covered book.
Yeah, I can never remember the name we defined for each of those, but that was
I think that's
my
the
first
home set, if I recall. Yeah, Moldve was the Errol Otis with the color, with the purple, with the dragon.
That's the one. It was
okay.
It was the
that's
Moldve
one. Okay,
one.
not the one.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, yes, the purple one with the sea serpent and the wizard and the fighter. Yeah, that's the Moldve.
I remember being annoyed because my first exposure was reading the player's handbook, which had all the separate races and classes, and I opened this up and I go, well, I want to be a halfling fighter or whatever it was. I didn't want to just be a halfling or an elf. So I was a little disappointed that first game, but my gosh, it led to so many awesome games later on.
Isn't that what's fascinating? You can play in your very first game, your character can die and you want more. I mean that's like losing, you play a game of Monopoly and you come in like dead last, and it's like probably the last thing you want to do is play that game again. But for some reason, role-playing games, even if it doesn't go well that very first time, you seem to want more, which is just amazing. And I love that. So and that definitely really ties us together. So all right, what was your favorite old school module, old school TSR module? Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I remember reading the early modules and being a little annoyed at for me, I think my brain's a little too logical sometimes. The dungeon design, I'm going, why would someone lay out this corridor? Just think of the effort it would take to make that thing. The first time I went, oh wow, this makes sense, was the Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. Like for me, it was, oh, there's a story that makes sense. There's reasons for all these people to be where they are, and that was actually the first module I ran with my university group. I don't think they remember that they actually ran through that module, so I might have to throw them through it again, because half the guys are still part of my regular group as it is, but that would have to be my favorite old one.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Is like number 2 on my list, the whole Saltmarsh series. Love it. I love the Scooby-Doo feeling of it. I just that's when I was watching Scooby-Doo, and it just it all came together back then, and I still love it to this day. That's great. So tell me about what you do. I would call it like your real job. What is your real job? What does Joe do from 9 to 5?
Well, for the last 19 or so years, I worked at an engineering consulting firm. So it's a company that would help anybody that generated, transmitted, or distributed electricity across North America. So we do systems design, we do regulatory compliance, and recently cybersecurity efforts as well. But actually, as of July this year, I retired out of that job. So I'm trying to make RPG design a go of it, sort of thing.
Work. That's right. So that's great. So definitely. Well, you've already made it through our funnel. And we're gonna talk about a couple things that you worked on. So that's great. So you're successful. I don't know if you can feed yourself on
there's this really neat company. I always forget the name. Goodman Games. I think they're pretty good. Folks should look out.
They are indeed. All right, so I got to ask you real quickly, Star Wars or Star Trek?
I think depending on the day, I might give you a different answer. My oldest daughter's in the house, so I'm gonna have to say Star Wars because she's an uber Star Wars fan.
Nice.
But yeah, no, I the first memory of going to the movies was 77 and Star Wars, and lining up in the local mall with, I'd never seen that many people lined up in one place before.
Nice.
So yeah, that was my first real introduction, similar to the way Matt described the science fiction and fantasy kind of stuff. But Star Trek was, I remember watching it with my cousins, all the old reruns with Shatner and Nimoy, and then once the movies came out and the Next Generation, I followed all those through. So it depends on the day.
Okay.
Or if my daughter's around.
Yes. Well, that's a great answer. That's a great answer. I love it. So, all right, we're going to talk about. So Joe has worked on 2 projects for us this year. First, we're going to talk about Crypt of the Devilich. So, I reached out to Joe when we were panicking because our Kickstarter was blowing up in front of us, and we decided that we were going to add a whole nother level to Crypt of the Devilich. I reached out to a bunch of my 5e writers that were just fresh off of finishing their job for Dungeon Denizens, which we're going to get to in a second. And Joe was like, hey, I'm free. I could totally do an encounter. So we actually commissioned Joe to write one of the lost level encounters. And obviously we got the cover up right now. If you can pull up the couple page spreads from Joe's actual encounter. Before today, Joe had not seen the layout of his own encounter, and it includes his map in there as well. So tell us a little bit something about your encounter, Joe. What these 15th level characters can expect from your encounter in the lost level of Crypt of the Devilich.
Well, the Devilich is well, obviously not a very friendly person, but I was thinking if I'm evil and I'm Lich and having all these nasty things around me, probably some good aligned entities are going to try to deal with that person. And because she's pretty darn strong, chances are she's put off some of these good aligned entities a few times. And when she does that, what does she do with the remains, the leftover, this radiant energy that maybe Deviliches don't really enjoy very much? So that was the impetus of coming up with this encounter, the kind of the waste bin of where she stuck her radiant debris.
And I love that concept, because that is such a great concept, and it fits her personality perfect, that she would like harvest that energy and not know what to do with it. Folks that are familiar with the module knows that she collected like other artifacts and stuff, and she like would mess with them a little bit, but she didn't totally understand them. But she would keep them, but she would just kind of like put them off into her lair somewhere and be like, someday this might be useful. And immediately when I read your concept, I was like, ooh, she might be like, someday she might be like, I might be able to make a weapon out of this radiant energy or something. And I thought that was fascinating. And I really love that. If we can pull up, there's another page too, I believe. If we can show this. Oh, cool. Excellent.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
Thank
actually,
you.
the page you're showing is a bunch of the stuff on there is thanks to you, Chris, because you're asking for some tweaks as we're going through the designs of it, and you go, you know what, it'd be really nice to have a little puzzle element in here. So I was pretty happy with that little
Yes.
brain tester. Not terribly complex that it will cause people grief, but just enough to make them go, what? Or that was the intent anyways.
Exactly. It was like, basically, we just had a little bit of something of, you can't just open up the door. You just can't get into the chamber. There's a little something you got to do before you can get into the chamber. And we worked and we kind of developed that out, and everything was cool. And then you even designed a magic item kind of for it. It's, well, kind of a magic item. It was a little bit on the curse side too, which most of the people who run through Devilich will find out that a lot of the magic items they find are not necessarily great for them. So
yeah, if you manage to clean out that room, you get a pleasant surprise that could be helpful, or
yes,
maybe not.
And then we also put in, and if you guys see on the sidebar there, so the lost level was not originally part of the module. So I added a sidebar in that if you wanted to actually put one of the shards of true death, which is the goal of the module, to collect all the shards up, there's a way that you could actually put one of the shards of true death in this encounter, so that you could kind of make it kind of all work together. If you want, you have to take it from one of the other encounters. But we tried to do that with most of the lost level encounters. Many of the lost level encounters, of which there are 8 of them, I believe, total, had that ability where we could possibly put in a shard if we wanted to. So
yeah, I'm curious to see how you shoehorn that level into the module. It'll be
yeah, it was actually a little bit tricky. The rooms, several of the rooms are really long. And it was like I was actually having some issues. And actually, if you notice on the page before, your room was mapped out kind of by itself. That was because it was kind of easier to display it that way.
yeah.
We are going to have an overall map of the level, but it was actually kind of hard to get that to scale and make that work.
Yeah, I made that room a little bit big.
Yes. Oh no, that actually was not one of the big rooms.
Oh.
Yes, I know your room was actually normal size compared to some of man, we had some massive rooms, hundreds of feet long, that were crazy. Yeah. So yeah, it was a little bit, that's what you get when we designed the Lost Level. We did it just like we did the original Devilich. We basically reached out to 8 different authors and said, design me a room and send it to me. And then I took them and put them together in some semblance of a logical, how a dungeon would be laid out, which is, I'm sure, as we talked earlier about how things are not logically laid out. I'm sure it's not logically laid out at all, but it's the best thing that we could do for trying to get it on an 8 by 11 sheet of paper.
You mean the Devilich is not logical?
No, not at all. Not at all. And she's got a lot of time, so it doesn't matter if it takes 100 years to create one of these encounters, because what else you got to do? She's just hanging around, getting ready to plot and to take over the world. So,
yep.
So as I mentioned earlier, Joe survived our initial call for writers through the funnel. We call it the funnel. And his first assignment was actually to contribute to Dungeon Denizens. We felt that we have a whole bunch of writers, and let's get them designing monsters, a handful of monsters. I think we targeted about 6 to 8 monsters for each of our writers. And Joe was one of those. And he developed, there's the cover artwork with the Errol Otis cover.
I haven't seen that yet.
Yes,
awesome.
I don't think too many people have actually seen the cover for that. So that's Errol's take on the original monster manual, where you kind of had the different levels, and you had a couple of flying critters, and you had a couple of critters on land, and then a couple of critters underground. And what's really cool is I got to stat out most of those monsters. So a couple of those monsters were already statted out, but several of them I had to actually base off of his artwork and try and make some kind of a logical critter out of it, which was actually a fun exercise to do.
All right, I have to ask you, the green guy with the multiple eyes, what's its name? Do you know?
That's the Ocular Worm. I know that's not too terribly original. So, but yes, it is the Ocular Worm, and that is just one of many. So they were tricky. Some of those things, if you look at those really, because I'm a biologist, and I looked at it, I'm like, oh my God, how does that thing attack? Like, it doesn't have, So I'm like trying to come up with, ways that these things are going to actually have abilities and stuff like that. I think they came out pretty good. So, but that was a ton of fun. Absolutely a ton of fun. So we're going to show off one of your monsters here. So first, before we show off your monster and we talk about the one that we have ready to show off, let me know, what was the favorite monster that you created? And give me a little bit what your inspiration was, and kind of tell us a little bit about this monster. I don't have a picture of this one yet, but we will have it soon. So.
It's sad. I can't remember the name of it, but I wanted to. I like the big beefy monsters, and I wanted to make a demon lord, and so I did. But how do you put a spin on it that'll surprise the characters was my challenge when I was trying to come up with it. So I'd have to say, was it Lich or something?
Yes, I believe it was Lich. I believe
something like that. And that I'd have to say was I enjoyed making all of them, but that had so many little moving pieces that I kind of had to twist the dials on, just because of the approach of its abilities. That it was a good challenge to take on.
Yeah, we found out real quickly that when you're doing demon lords, the stat boxes get really complicated, and it really turns into a little bit more of a process and a balancing process. And I would say the editors probably had their biggest challenge was those, because those are hard to get when you're doing like a CR 20 something. Mm-hmm. Trying to get that tweaked properly is not difficult. And in my opinion, when you're talking CR 20, CR 25, and things like that, they're probably not going to be balanced. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, they're more for fun. But we made a concerted effort to put some demon lords and devil lords in this book because we wanted to kind of scratch those itches that people have. Some of them very famous from some other Goodman Games products like Malatok, the crow goddess, the carrion goddess, I should say. So we had a lot of fun doing that. So I want to call up, if Elena, if you can pull up the Blood Tree Troll. This is the first time anybody's seeing Joe's monster. Joe saw it earlier today, but we're going to pull up. This is another one of those example monsters.
Yeah, that looks great.
From the book. Yeah, I think that artwork came out really cool. I think it really caught the spindly limbs that we were going for there. Which trolls normally have spindly limbs, but basically, why don't you give them a little rundown on what the Blood Troll is all about?
Yeah, I'm not sure what drove me down this design path, but as I was doing it, I kind of had this idea of the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where he's fighting the alien in the forest. Why I can't believe I can't remember the name of it right now.
Is that
Predator. So yeah. I thought, okay, well, what if there was a troll out here? How would a troll survive? Wouldn't it be great if they could actually just move through the branches as opposed to being this big guy lobbling along the ground? And that's kind of what drove the design thinking for the guy.
And I love that concept. We actually really love where you take a monster that people might be familiar with, but then you put that twist or that spin on it, where like when these guys see these guys coming, swinging through the trees, and they don't think troll right off the bat. Even though it is a troll, so you get them off their guard or right from the start, and they might figure out eventually, wow, these things are kind of like trolls. But there's something about that when you're playing a role-playing game and you don't exactly know what you're up against. When you're up against trolls, you're like, okay, trolls, we know, get the fire out, get the flaming oil and everything. But they probably wouldn't even think of that with this creature. And if this creature can move through the treetops with ease, can blend in with its camouflage. Obviously you got your wicked claws and everything. So so that's I really gravitated toward that. I mean, people came up with great ideas. Just to let people know, this is how it went. I actually asked all of the 18 authors to come up with concepts for the monsters just out of the blue. And they sent me a list of, I don't know, it was probably like 12 or 15, 10, 15 concepts. And then I would go through the concepts and I'd be like, yes, I want this one, I want this one, I want this one, I want that one. And I remember being attracted to this right off the bat, saying, oh yeah, come on, the D&D game needs more trolls, in my opinion. Giant trolls, two-headed trolls, I love it. And I just think this is definitely a monster that's going to get to the game table. And it's going to really, I think people, it's not that complicated, not that new. I shouldn't say not that new, but just different take on a nice classic trope, and we love that at Goodman Games. And that's
I think that's one of the tricks with getting a design is put enough meat in it so it's new and interesting, but make it simple enough so the DM behind the screen isn't scratching their head trying to go, oh, what the heck do I do with them this turn? Because I know my first drafts of things have way too much stuff in them. And so I use the red pen and get rid of some of the stuff to really try to chew down what's the true ability that this monster should be kind of invoking. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Excellent. So great. Well, so that's all that we have to share with you guys here for this episode. I would like to thank everybody. Joe, thank you very much for jumping on here. Hopefully you guys are going to see Joe again next year. We're probably going to do a couple more shows about Dungeon Denizens here and there. We might even do an episode of Talking TSR. We might have some of the authors on. So I want to get as many of these 18 folks in front of the camera as we possibly can, so you guys can hear the stories about the, basically their passion of designing monsters and what they brought, when they were actually designed these critters, because it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun getting the submissions from everybody, tweaking them, and then the editors went through, and so we got, I gave the editors full authority to tweak things and offer suggestions. I went in and tweaked some things after that, because our goal was, at the end of the day, we wanted these monsters to be, kind of the best of the best, and the more people that you can kind of get tweaking it on and everything is definitely going to get, the end result's going to be amazing. So thank you, Joe. I'd like to thank Matt for jumping on with me. I'd like to thank Joe for a couple of words early on. I'd like to thank Elena for all weekend long. Elena, thank you. Thank you for doing an excellent job producing us here today. I'd like to thank you guys, for tuning in, and we will be back with you guys later on tonight. Everybody, please come to the charity auction tonight at 9 o'clock. It's going to be a fun time. Jim Kitchen is going to be emceeing again, and if you want some awesome original artwork, I'll throw something out there. There's original artwork from Crypt of the Devilich. If you guys want some awesome original artwork from the amazing artists at Goodman Games, come to the charity auction. We will have something for you. Or, of course, just go talk to the artists in Gathertown as well. So with that, I am going to sign off, and everybody have a great night and a great rest of the convention. Thank you.